Try
Hi,
that.
kids. Pater.
El Abba.
Baraba.
El Abba.
Okay. Frank Zappa?
Now then.
All right, let me try this again here. This Father Ryan says he is available for Skypington. Yeah, let's do.
Calling Father Ryan. Calling Father Ryan. Come in, Father Ryan. Are you there?
Hello?
Calling Father Ryan. Are you there?
Can anyone hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh, good. Yes, I can hear you.
We're 100% wall by wall.
I don't know what that means, but that's good. So it sounds good.
That's
Sounds
an
good.
old CB lingo. Wall to wall, got you here on Cotton Ears.
Sounds very dramatic.
I know it was silly, and the FCC said, "Y'all have ruined this bandwidth. You can have it."
Yeah.
So
Well, we
they-
used to, when we would drive up north, we would drive about 17 hours, my mom and my dad, and I would all pile in the van, and we used to have the CB on, and we'd hear all the truckers, and that was kind of the way we entertained ourselves before
Yeah.
before there was XM.
Well, that's a good point, and that's kind of how we did vacation. I remember it was 1990. We took our kids and we went to the Grand Canyon during the winter, between Christmas and New Year's. So and the kids really enjoyed it. So I'm glad we had a CB radio with us because cell phones are so expensive to use. But anyway, it's gotten so vulgar now I couldn't even listen to it. It's they've trashed it. You know.
Yeah, they have. It's just that, and it's cursing, screaming, arguing, and of course, cops.
Yeah.
You got a cop up there.
That's Smokey Bear. All right. Father Chris is, we've got cameras working this week, but we don't think Kathleen's going to be here.
Okay.
I was looking so forward to her contribution on beards.
Yeah, that would have been hysterical. It really would have.
We'll,
I know, because 'tis what it is, though, right? Okay.
yeah?
All right.
Catch your breath. That's right.
Well, I think all is well.
Good.
Hallelujah.
We did hit a milestone in Catholic Underground history. It actually
Okay.
took us less than an hour to get everything set up today.
Yes, that was a good thing.
That's good. I've got a first-rate kickoff story for you. and
Oh yeah. Okay. We'll
Everything else should be nice
hop over.
and easy. Unfortunately, Kathleen won't be here to contribute to beards, which that would be
Yeah, I
sad.
know. We set up a whole studio for her too. Hi, everybody. Oh, we're actually still on standby.
Oh, are we? Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. Well, we're live now. We're live now for the pre-show. You see,
Okay.
so now you can play around. You just play around. All you want to do, play around with Camp 5. Play around with Jeff's. Hey, how you doing? Good
Yeah.
to see. Yeah. Now you can. See, this is the part of the show where you just get comfortable. You just get comfortable. That's what we do.
Yeah, you
Good.
get in front of the mic and you kind of get your
Yeah.
whatever under you.
Your feet or whatever it is. Perhaps you're one of those mer people. Who knows?
Kick off shoes. Stay a while.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, Mom, we're number one. Yes.
It's the CU pre-show. I'm Father Chris Decker. Sometimes Jeff does things, and we thank him for it. Sometimes he doesn't, because he's a gadabout.
Yes. Curses.
I'll be right back. Hang on.
And Father Ryan is gone.
In a minute, he'll be back. So,
Sorry, what?
hit that one again.
From the Catholic Underground.
See, I have to fix all these in post. I don't know why it is. I went back and checked them, and they're plenty loud. But I make them louder in post.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't always understand why audio and video do what they do.
I can understand audio more than video. Video just,
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes
overwhelms me. Just simply because of the bandwidth. That's what. This is a true story, Father Ryan. Are you back?
I just got back.
Cool. All right. This is a true story. They used wire recorders probably back in the late 40s, early 50s to record audio.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with the wire recorder?
No.
It actually was a piece of wire, and it would record these sonic vibrations on it, which could be, replayed. The quality wasn't great. But then when they came up with the recording tape, like the quarter-inch recording tape,
Mm-hmm.
they said, well, heck, if this works for audio, let's do it for video. Then they realized the amount of bandwidth that it takes for video, even black and white video back in those days. So they
Right.
said, well, the way to accomplish that, still using an audio type head, record head, and playback head, is to make the tape go faster. And the faster the tape goes, the more bandwidth it would capture. But this is a fact. With my hand up, I wish you could see me on TV right now. What I tell you, they would have to put a half-hour show on a 5-foot reel of quarter-inch tape.
Wow.
Roll them in, boys. and of course, it had to. It was death to anyone who stood in the way, because that thing, a half hour. Can you imagine how
5
fast
feet.
a 5-foot reel? So that's when they kind of came up with the what was the helical scan, the four rotating heads, and the tape would pass this direction, the heads would scan this direction, and but then you got into all that banding and stuff that went with it. But transversal scan, I think, is helical scan, is when they got the VCRs and stuff, had that same technology where they angled the tape, and when it made it physically look like a huge wide piece of tape, so you could cram more stuff on it. And there's another boring fact
from Jeff Blackwell.
From the Catholic Underground.
That guy. Yeah. All right. Splendid.
I have Jeff. I have your picture. It looks like you're taking the CU oath with your hand up.
Swear to you, yeah. Take the CU oath. All right.
Father Ryan could write it.
I could. I found a website, Father Chris, that you would like. It's called thegrommet.com. The Grommet with 2 M's in the middle.
Uh-huh.
It's a website with kind of new, neat products
Oh.
that you should look at. It's really quite cool.
Oh, look at this. For actual productivity for creative people.
Yeah.
Actually, he asked me today if I had grommets.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. I promise you. You got one of those grommet machines? No, but I can find one, I'm sure. Thegrommet.com.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of neat.
That's right. With 2 M's. It's incredibly neat. Just the kind of products they have they're not really hipster. They're useful hipster.
I want the ostrich pillow.
I do too. It's $75, a lot for the ostrich pillow though.
You've got Jeff's
want it-
attention now.
I want it bad.
Braggy? Yeah.
I also like the Tula hats.
Tula will never
I don't
leave
really
you.
know about these weird underwear that can cost $20 a pair. That seems a bit over the top.
Mm. Are they low carb? That's what I was wondering.
They are.
I really don't
they're-
want to know about
They're
that.
biodegradable by digestion. Is that what you're
I
saying?
am not
I don't-
saying it. I just, I had to think on that one a while, but
and
But they
we're-
have some neat tech stuff. They have some neat nutrition and health stuff. They have a pocket mixer, Jeff, that might be interesting to you.
come on,
It's a DJ mixer.
Really?
That is about the size of an iPhone.
man.
Ooh,
I
they have a
think there's
posture
there's-
corrector. I want one. I'm getting one.
I do have one of these DJ
it
apps.
comes in posture correction.
That comes in posture correction?
You have I'm sorry, Jeff. You have a DJ app.
Yeah, and it plays from, and it's pretty neat little app, but I don't know. I've got a piece of software that I dearly love on my laptop that I can just slam music in there, and it takes care of all the, like you can put the order of things, and it takes care of segues, and you can either track build logs and all that kind of business, or you can just have it delete songs as it plays. And I use it for the church fair over at MBS, so we can pre-produce some real nice ads, if you will, for the booths, the bingo games, the sponsors.
And you can do it all from your phone.
Well, I'm actually doing it all from a laptop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's almost like a radio station customized just for the fair, because we play music and we make the.
I used to do that for World Youth Day.
Wow.
In fact, that's how I got the very first. I'd almost gone to the seminary. I was in the semester, or the beginning of the new semester. I would be entering the seminary, and that's when I got a job offer. Says, "You actually looks like you're running a radio station out the back of that truck." I said, "Well, I kind of am."
Sorta. Yeah.
And they said, "Well, you want a job?" I said, "Well, this is a sticky wicket."
Man, that's something.
But it turns out it wasn't a sticky wicket because I was quite happily going to the seminary. So.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I still do that DJing thing for friends, weddings, and receptions, and
Jeff also does bat mitzvahs.
bat mitzvahs. I don't get many of those, but I've done a couple.
That's for the girl.
Not really. But I did an hour and a half VO for I think it was B'nai B'rith synagogue here
Oh yeah.
for their an anniversary thing. But I was, it was really cool to be in a service. I'd never been to.
The service of the word.
Is that what they call it?
Well, I mean, it's actually.
At
Correct me if I'm
synagogue.
wrong, Father Ryan. It is rather liturgical. The synagogue
Oh, yeah.
service.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
liturgical.
Yes. Let's get ready to dive in.
That is the perfect amount of shalominess.
Oh,
Shalomitude.
That's right.
I like that. That sounds like a T-shirt right there, man.
You know what? This site also has a really nice feature. It has a lot of these kind of IKEA-esque names that just kind of don't really make any sense.
And rightly so.
Like this thing here, these 3 little squirt bottles, they're called BKR, Bicker.
Bicker.
I don't really know what to make of it, but I want one.
Bicker. I like the toy dozers.
It's a really good idea. I mean, why hasn't someone thought of it before?
We have.
I like it.
Let's see here. Let me look
They've even got fishing tackle on this website. It's really quite amazing.
How lovely.
I'm enjoying this website.
Docs, Google Docs. That's what I was trying to get into. My brain just wouldn't publish.
They have homemade bitters, Father.
Oh.
Like organic, like fancy bitters.
I wonder if you have to use them within a certain amount, because usually the organic things you have to.
It's called they're called Urban Moonshine Organic Bitters.
I've seen those before.
It says you could use them alone. I should think not. They're bitter.
Cures
Well, it says
hiccups.
the bottle has 200 servings, so I doubt there's a quick expiration date.
Ooh, man.
Maybe they expect a little bit more out of you. Look, you're going to have to drink this stuff out.
You're going to need a lot of bitterness in your life. We have a special tea blending kit.
Oh, that's right. Man, you could channel your inner Kevin Rose.
Yeah, but I'm not really that fancy with teas. I mean, I enjoy them.
He did have don't listen to him, Jeff. There was a time when Father Ryan got all tea crazy, which would be the name of his British revival punk band.
Tea crazy. Or all tea crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's sweet. Well,
As opposed to tea cozy.
Well, I still have lots of tea. I mean, at any one time, I have about 30 different kinds, but
That he drinks simultaneously.
it's a really odd flavor set.
and I tell you, rarely do I drink like hot tea, but when I have sinus or sore throat or something like that, there are some of those teas, those herbal teas, that I really find soothing.
There's one that ended up here at the radio station called, oh man, Throat Coat.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. I'm familiar with that. It's good.
And it's kind of it's like Pepto-Bismol that stays in your throat. It's just but it tastes good.
It's disgusting, but it tastes good.
It's disgusting, but it tastes good, so it must be good for you.
Your 3M.
It's the miracle acrylic bubble that makes it possible.
Oh, yeah.
Of course it is.
Too many robbers.
It's becoming more and more difficult to come up with TMR. There's a lot of different things that work, but at a certain point,
Tremonti Riviera.
I don't even know what that means. Tickle me Relmo?
No, you can't.
Now, that's a good one. That deserves a ding. Ah, there you go, Father Ryan. You got your ding.
I want to be able to use this intro, Jeff.
The CU World of Technology.
But we haven't yet had a reason to use it.
We'll find a place.
Yeah.
Look at this gorgeous and useless piece of equipment. Oh, it's gorgeous. It's an old-timey electric light inside a glass bell.
Oh yeah, like that's becoming all the rage now.
Really?
But it's $135.
Yeah, because you're paying for that filament.
Ooh.
I guess you are.
That's
dollar.
filament.
The filament.
It better last forever.
Well, I was about to say, how much power does that thing draw or amperage?
Probably about 3 houses worth.
3
Wow.
orphans.
So, I mean, you can actually start your own lighthouse, huh?
It seems like. I mean, it's huge. I mean, I'm sure it's gorgeous, but at the same time, it's nothing about it makes any sense.
Right there in the middle of your own neighborhood, man.
They have wooden yard dice that are about a little crazy. I mean, I guess you were playing like ginormous. I mean, they appear to be
Sorry.
about 8 inches,
So heavy.
and so I guess you could play like giant Yahtzee with them.
Sure.
But, I mean, by the time
You'd
you'd
have
probably
to-
have such a
You'd have to use an oil drum.
Well, I think you have to just pick one up and
Just
throw
put
it across
yeah.
the line.
We're taking wagers in the front yard here, so.
That's right.
And they have something called buoy bats and marbles.
I don't support it.
There's a lot of these weird lawn games I'm just not getting, I guess. I'm not hip
Hipsters
enough.
like lawn games, from what I'm
I
told.
guess.
It's been a few years since I've had a marble or two.
As long as you can wear suspenders, I think hipsters like anything.
That's true. I think I'm going to facilitate some water into my esophagus before we start our television and radio program.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Jeff, would you like una botella?
S'il vous plaît.
I'll have one of those.
Yeah, one of them. S'il vous plaît.
Hot.
Purdy, please. So
This is just so cool.
our friend up there in Natchitoches and Lainey, that's her name, Lainey. Okay. Anyway, she she says, look, I really like your voice. Could I get you to do some and it has to do for the Festival of Lights, thank you, or Christmas Festival.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, sure, yeah, send them to me, I'll get them done.
VO the mess out of that stuff.
Yeah. It's just a few. I told her, she says, how much you going to charge for this? Oh, listen, it's a privilege. Love to do it. So,
For you, the friend rate.
man, yeah.
$90 a minute.
I like that.
It's a
$90
good
a minute.
rate.
That is a good rate. I like it. It just flows right off the tongue there.
That's right.
$80 a minute.
What is the typical rate for VO in the pro world? I mean, what is that?
Well, if it's it depends on if it's broadcast or non-broadcast,
Oh, I see.
and there is kind of like a PSA rate, what they call for nonprofits, which is typically half rate. But if it's just straight VO narration type stuff, 65 a minute, which includes studio and editing. But if you want music with it, it's like 95 a minute.
Yeah.
With a 5-minute minimum.
Oh, okay.
And then commercials, it depends on if it's just in a single market, or if it's going to be in multiple markets. So if it's a 60 or a 30, if it's going to run longer than 13 weeks, of course, you start getting into the union stuff, then they're the ones who really come back on that 13 week rate, 26, and you got to re-up, and then they have buyout rates. But I've always done buyout rates when I started my business. And there was an attorney firm here in town that used my little 15-second deal for 10 years. But that's okay. I did get paid for it.
I hear Jeff all over town now.
Do you?
Yeah.
What's he doing?
He's talking about insurance. He's talking about monster truck rallies, all sorts of stuff.
I don't do that stuff.
There's some stuff that I know it's you, and I go, huh? Yeah.
Well, Acadian Ambulance was one of those that they ran into the ground for a few weeks.
I just noticed that.
And then
Can you have her switch to that camera, and I'll try and fix it.
oh. Yeah, we're going to change cameras here. What you doing, Governor?
Are we expecting Kathleen? Not Kathleen. Mary Kate?
Mary Kate is actually switching the show. She's in a different room.
She's here though.
Yes, she's here.
Is she going to talk on the microphone?
I know she can hear you, but Mary Kate, are you going to be talking on the microphone? I don't have a microphone run out back there, so nope. The answer is nope.
Oh, that's sad 'cause we have the book stuff to talk about.
Oh man, and she's brilliant when it comes to that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Well, think out loud, Mary Kate. We will try to perceive your thoughts over here on the other side of the glass, that is. Well, last week turned out to be kind of a quasi-wacky start to the program. We were able to actually record, though, and save all of our efforts and archive. So, but I think we're in good shape this week.
Outstanding.
Yes, hallelujah.
Now I'll probably be blocking Jeff's head.
That's okay. I got a
Oh
big
no, there we
head.
go. That's actually a better shot.
Oh, that's cool. All right.
Yeah.
So we're 5 minutes away.
Oh, good. Good.
And are you archiving?
Let me see here. Archive. Yep. And
Yeah, we need makeup in here. Father Chris has got a little.
I can be a little blotchy.
Yeah, a wee bit. That was our 5-minute warning officially. So.
That's right. Okay. Well, we can go ahead and
Oh,
pray.
it's
Let me
so
make sure this is
nice.
all good to go. Yep, we're good.
Yes, sir, we are.
All right. Yeah, we're giving Mary Kate the full immersion for video production. She's got the video production suite there, the whole thing in front of her, and she's got the monitors. And so she's how did Zuckerberg say it? He's wired in. She requests that I call her, or at least I give her a rank and insignia.
Well,
I think Father Ryan can establish that.
Yeah, I'll come up with something.
Okay.
Maybe a rear admiral or right guard or something.
A right guard? Wait.
Yeah. She could be an offensive tackle.
There you go.
Official offensive tackle for the CU.
And so eventually we'll get her back on the air with all that gusto. No.
Bully.
Suppose we want to pray, though. Yeah.
Yes.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty God, we give you thanks for the gift of the gospel that comes to us through Jesus Christ, who is the Word made flesh. We ask that you would give us the desire in our hearts to say the things that can help for the road to salvation. We ask that you bring joy to the hearts of our listeners and help them through any of the struggles that they may experience. We ask that you hear their prayers, O Lord, and that you would protect all of our equipment from any deadly attack of the enemy. We make this prayer in the name of Jesus the Lord. Amen. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. And of course, as I understand it, we'll see you on the flip side at 7 p.m. Central Time for the Catholic Underground.
From the Catholic Underground.
You've been listening to Web of Faith on EWTN Radio.
Hi, this is Jim Pinto.
And I'm Joy Pinto.
Please join us Monday through Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for At Home with Jim and Joy.
We have practical advice to strengthen your family and your marriage.
Join us Monday through Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, here on EWTN Radio.
At Home with Jim and Joy, we look forward to talking with you.
This is EWTN Radio.
Green Seasons is a local Catholic family-owned business and a proud supporter of Catholic Community Radio. Green Seasons serves the Baton Rouge and surrounding areas with services such as landscape and design, lawn maintenance, and pest control. Online at greenseasons.us.
Hi, this is Coach Alan Taylor, founder of St. Michael's Family Fitness. We're proud to support the mission of Catholic Community Radio. St. Michael's Family Fitness, strength to serve. 225-241-9332.
Pepper's Fresh Market on Airline Highway in Prairieville is a proud supporter of Catholic Community Radio. Tim and Kim Godso are the new owners of Pepper's, and along with their son Kalen and daughter Carrie, are members of Most Blessed Sacrament Parish. Pepper's Fresh Market features fresh fruits, vegetables, and seafood, including crawfish. Pepper's is located at 17497 Airline Highway in Prairieville. Their number is 673-9083 or on Facebook at Pepper's Fresh Market.
At Catholic Community Radio, good stewardship is at the core of every financial decision. Your donation, large or small, is only spent with the goal of keeping Catholic Radio going strong in Louisiana. Consider donating online at CatholicCommunityRadio.org.
Weather forecasts on Catholic Community Radio are brought to you by the National Weather Service and sponsored in part by you. Log on to CatholicCommunityRadio.org.
The Knights of Columbus, Council 969, will be sponsoring a barbecue chicken dinner as a fundraiser to help defray funeral expenses for the family of the late Monique Ward, an Our Lady of Mercy parishioner. The event will be held Sunday, September 29th at Our Lady of Mercy Catholic Church from 10 to 1:30. Come down and get a great barbecue dinner for $10 a plate. Tickets are available at the door, first come, first served. Come to Our Lady of Mercy from 10 to 1:30 Sunday the 29th for a great barbecue dinner.
Catholic Community Radio
Catholic radio for your community
is listener supported.
1380
WPYR Baton Rouge.
This is your station.
Catholic radio for your community.
From the Catholic Underground.
Today on the show, refining your Catholic library. Can we leave you some literature about our Lord and Savior? An invitation to put your big pants on, our picks of the week, and so much more. The Catholic Underground starts now. Alrighty, it's time for the Catholic Underground, which is your weekly Catholic guide to the digital continent. It's episode number 241. I'm Father Chris Decker. If you're listening live, you can join us at CatholicUnderground.tv and get your chat on with us. A special welcome to our listeners around the world, and to those of you especially joining us this week on Catholic Life Television in the Diocese of Baton Rouge, and also those of you via St. Michael Broadcasting in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. Joining me this week, we've got Father Ryan Humphries. He's the rector of the Minor Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in North Louisiana. Hello, Father Ryan.
Hello, world.
And we've also got Jeff Blackwell. He's the technical director of the CU, and he's also commandant of the Jeff Star 1, and he's also a reading glasses recycling expert. Hello, Jeff.
Evening, Father.
Yes, indeed, and the unseen voice and face on the podcast, Mary Kate Taylor, is our video director and executive producer for this episode. So,
Hear, hear.
So kudos to her. Well, in what can only be described as good news this week, Apple announced solemnly that a severed finger will not be able to fool the new fingerprint reader on the iPhone 5S. We know that Jeff was actually wondering about this because he watched the keynote. And Jeff, so you won't be able to use somebody else's finger.
I'm stunned. I am stunned. Does it have to have a pulse? I mean, is that how it figures it out?
Father Ryan is already trying to figure out how to make this work, right?
Using an odd combination of Saguru, Jello, and a small fish tank pump. We've had some limited success, but Father, it's just challenging. I didn't expect the legacy of Steve to do this to us.
That's right. You would think that a person could use a severed finger whenever they want.
You'd think. I mean, it's a free country.
It's 2013. I mean, honestly. So here's the deal. We actually normally would spend an entire hour just on a new iPhone announcement, but we've evolved as a program. But of course, there were new iPhones that were announced, and one of the cool things on it is the new fingerprint reader. Now, Father Ryan, are you yeah or meh on the fingerprint reader?
Yeah, it's largely irrelevant. It's going to be something that's very interesting down the road. But right now, there's just not a strong need for it. And frankly, it'll mean something when you can put your finger anywhere on the glass and use it to unlock the device. But when you've got to go down and push the button anyway, and then hope to Almighty God that it reads the fingerprint right, and you put it in roughly the same place as you did last time, and you're not too far up and too far down. It's pretty meh right now. But this is something every phone will have in, about a year from now or 2 years from now, and then I'll be excited about it.
And of course, I guess we can all be thankful that we can sleep more easily at night, knowing that if my phone is stolen and my finger is somehow cut off, my data is safe.
Oh,
except for iCloud.
At least if you have an iPhone.
Except for Google Drive. Oh, well. Now that we've got that covered, let's move on to lesser news, shall we? Okay, so you're a blogger. You're prepping a video program for that new YouTube channel. You're maybe getting ready to start a podcast. What should a Catholic's reference shelf look like? This is a really good question that Stephen Weisenbach over at the Catholic Writers Guild has been musing upon. What a Catholic editor or writer might need to have on hand so that they can properly speak on the faith in a professional and concise manner. Now, Stephen suggests a couple of things for you. The CNS style book on religion, which is kind of like the Associated Press style book, but it has basic capitalizations and things like that. Also, the USCCB style guide, which I have. And I noticed that whenever we were covering the Holy Father's visit in 2008 to Washington, D.C., everybody got a copy of the USCCB style guide because they, you had to know how to misspell a cardinal's name properly. They're all Italian. Let me restate that. And also Father John Hardin's Modern Catholic Dictionary. He also suggests our Sunday Visitors Catholic Dictionary and Catholic Almanac, which I don't have either of those, but I like the idea of them. And then, of course, it's a non-Catholic book, but Roget's Thesaurus of the Bible. Now, partially, this having physical books is important, but a lot of people have digital bookshelves as well. Like Father Ryan, you've got a digital bookshelf.
Yeah, my digital bookshelf is epic. I've been maintaining it since 1996, 1997, and it's got every papal document. It's got the Summa Theologica, all the catechisms going back to before the Council of Trent, and so I can do a search of that entire folder and come up with a huge quantity of stuff pretty quickly.
And I remember when you started it, and I immediately wanted it. And I think the way that it started out, this, of course, was before flash drives and before USB sticks and all those sorts of things. I think we would spend hours in each other's dorm room just transferring data back and forth.
With floppy disks.
With floppy disks.
I remember very well when we finally got a zip drive, and we would plug the zip drive into my computer and then copy 100 megs. 100 whole megs over, and then unhook the entire thing, move the whole operation over to your room, plug the whole thing back in, and just back and forth that for hours.
And this, of course, now we have Dropbox, and it happens
where I have
instantaneously.
100 gigs.
Right. It's really insane to think of how far the ability to have good references has come. It really is. So we've got the style guides and the dictionaries and the almanacs, the thesaurus of the Bible.
Yes.
What would your reference shelf have? Jeff, have you given any thought to what your reference shelf might have?
You would ask me questions like that.
I mean, I'm just wondering, because, you don't do a whole lot of Catholic writing just yet.
No.
Just yet.
Not okay, just yet. We'll leave it open.
Yeah.
I don't. I have not even. If there was something electronics related, I might be thinking about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know for me, having a good translation of the Bible is very important. I usually use the RSV Catholic edition, and for me that's a very good translatable version. I also would keep by my bedside and by my desk the Non-Designer's Book of Graphic Design, which you talked about on the show before, just in case I'm doing something and I want to make sure the layout is right. I use that book quite a bit. And then, of course, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which is a no-brainer. But now even that is a digital item for me. And so I think that's a kind of an important thing to have. Father Ryan, I know in addition to your digital stuff, you've probably got books as well, huh?
Yeah, I mean, when I do some serious writing and I actually need to sit down and do some investigation, my kind of go-to items digitally are the Baltimore Catechism number 3, because it's public domain, so I can cut and paste without any question. The old Catholic Encyclopedia at newadvent.com, also because it's public domain. The RSV Bible from the University of Michigan, the Summa Theologica from New Advent, EWTN's document library, which is awesome, and Wikipedia, surprisingly, because it's very, very complete and it's incredibly well cited. The footnotes.
Yeah, it's also are curated, too.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, if I'm going to do a Bible study, Wikipedia is one of the major sources I look to because other people have done huge amounts of the legwork. When I'm looking at print, though, I want to keep the church visible, the Knox Bible, a Bible in Greek, and the Vulgate, the Latin Bible, around. And I also want to have the Roman Missal, the New and the Old. And I like to keep the Liber Usualis around as well.
That's right. I actually have a copy of the Knox Bible as well. And we've mentioned it on the show before. It's basically a version of the scriptures that was written by Father Ronald Knox. And it was an attempt to make an English translation from the original sources. And it has a very delightfully British-sounding yet accessible translation to it. And it's very good, especially when you want a couple of... And Jeff, you might be wondering, well, Jeff, why would I have multiple translations of Scripture hanging around and even a Greek Bible? But when you're actually doing serious research work, it really can be helpful to be able to have those things to compare side by side. And I think that's a great idea, too. The EWTN document library that you mentioned, Father Ryan, is really concise as well.
It's basically most of what I've got in TruthNet is available on EWTN's document library. It's all full text searchable, and rather than email me and say, Father, send me your gigantic 5 gig library, just go to EWTN. You're going to have basically everything there, and it's wonderful. And you don't get original languages there, but if you really do need the original of Augustine's De Trinitatibus, well, then you go get it. But I mean,
go get it.
But it's incredibly complete and very, very good.
Yep, and of course that's Father Ryan does call his online reference library that is available only to, well, I guess him and me. We call it TruthNet. TruthNet.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. That's great.
But we went through a phase in the seminary where we were just naming everything.
Well, we were trying to make a website out of it. And at that point, the copyright law was a big question. And so we had put this whole website together, and I called it TruthNet, and we had kind of developed this whole thing and this interface, and then it went nowhere.
Yeah.
But, as so many of our projects do, Father.
It's true. It's true. But they all have great logos.
And snazzy names.
That's right.
From the Catholic Underground.
Speaking of print, I opened the door this weekend at the rectory to find at my doorstep a copy of The Watchtower. It takes quite a soul to come up to the Catholic rectory and leave a copy of The Watchtower. For those of you who might be unfamiliar, The Watchtower is a publication produced by the Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's actually a publication that was originally begun in 1879.
Wow!
So there's quite a history behind this publication, and of course, for a Jehovah's Witness, the distribution of the Watchtower is kind of central to their evangelization technique. The idea is to get the publication in the hands of a potential convert. If that convert seems interested, then to schedule a back call, as they call it, for more conversation and discussion. And from there, the potential convert is kind of brought to what they would consider a Bible study. We would call it kind of catechesis, if you will, on the belief system of their ecclesial community. And eventually, you kind of work your way through and get invited further and further in. Now, we know that for the Jehovah's Witnesses, there are questions as to their theology, and their literature does represent an incomplete or, in some cases, incorrect catechesis. But whenever I got this document on my doorstep, it got me to thinking, what are they doing right? And how can a Catholic door-to-door evangelist, like we talked about on episode 224 with Sister Marjorie and the Parish Visitation Sisters, how can a Catholic door-to-door evangelist use some of these techniques to bring souls to Jesus and to the Tetragrammaton? And so, Father Ryan, I thought we would use this vehicle that we have called the Catholic Underground to give a little bit of discussion to that. So
we do a good brainstorm.
We do. And really, one of the beautiful things about our show that we think is that we provide an opportunity to kind of break some of this stuff open. Because, I mean, you got to say, the Watchtower, it's beautiful. It's come a long way. Jeff, we were talking before the show that for you, whenever you'd get the Watchtower on your doorstep or delivered by a Jehovah's Witness, it was usually a newsprint, and it felt weird and it looked strange, and there weren't a whole lot. There was no color.
Very little. I think it was just really on the cover, and it was basically just old art. When I say art, I'm talking about it wasn't a photograph.
Right. Yeah, it was a drawing or an etching or something like that.
Yeah.
And so for those of you who are watching us on television, on CUTV, I mean, you can see it's a color. It's still kind of a newsprint kind of thing. There's a little gloss to it.
Yeah.
But it's really engaging. And that was the thing that drew me in, is if I'm somebody who is in a place of suffering, if I'm in a place where I'm searching.
Yes.
Something like this that is compelling, that's well designed, is going to draw me in. So it's small, it's pretty, it's full color, it's filled with easily digestible information. There are even infographics, which America loves these days. And there's an excellence in the presentation. And I really am amazed at that. And then they also have another little thing that was tucked inside my Watchtower called Awake.
Yeah.
And this one's entitled The Truth About Halloween. And so they're kind of expressing some of their beliefs about Halloween. They speak truthfully about some of its origins, but then, of course, there are some divergent things. But this is, for us, this would be the equivalent of The Truth About All Saints' Day. You know, it's one document that is specifically geared towards one aspect of catechesis.
Yeah.
And again, it's print, but it increases eyeballs in our saturated world that wouldn't necessarily go to the internet. And Father Ryan, there are also QR codes.
There it better be. I love a good QR code.
Yeah, but Father, this is a really good idea. And plus, it's delivered by hand.
Yeah, that's a huge selling point. I mean, the idea is that you need to have somebody, you need to put a face on faith, but so many Catholics are absolutely petrified because what do you say?
Right.
Catholicism is a deeply integrated, theological, philosophical, religious, natural, all these things stir together. And so where do you start talking about the faith? And of course, we've talked about charisma here often,
Yeah.
but most Catholics just don't know what to do. And if you can go somewhere and say, can I just give you this book?
Mm-hmm.
That makes it extremely possible for even ordinary people to say, maybe I'll just walk up and down my road and give people this book.
And that's the thing. And this one, this document was on my doorstep. It was right next to my Amazon box, and that was the thing that really intrigued me. That a person, an actual flesh and blood person who presumably doesn't have the iPhone 5S because they have all their fingers, placed it at my doorstep. And to me, just that little level of that personability is a good thing. And I think as a Catholic evangelist, one of the things that folks don't often see is they don't see another Catholic face-to-face. I mean, they get stuff from the news or they get the common scuttlebutt. But how many times would a Catholic be the person at your door saying, can I tell you about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ?
Yeah.
And if you don't have time, can I at least leave this with you? So,
Right.
and one of the things that we'll do in our show notes is we'll give you a little bit more information on the Jehovah's Witnesses, because we're certainly not saying that the Watchtower, you should go out and get a copy, but we should pay attention to it. And so what would a similar Catholic publication need to have? Father, you've already begun crunching this.
Yeah, if you crunch the numbers, I think that you'd need between 5 and 6 articles. These are articles that actually give you information, 750 to 1,250 words, something that's easy you can take in, put bluntly, when you're, on the throne, or somewhere that where you can just kind of take in a bit and then set it aside again, take in a bit, set it aside again. I think you'd want to have some witnesses and personal testimonies. You have a photo of somebody who's telling real stories about their life. You don't want every one of them to be the prodigal son, but you want witnesses of real people who have come to the realization that they are sinners, God's mercy is available, and the sacraments of the church have given them a deep sense of personal comfort as well as a deep sense of faith in the world that is to come. So you need some articles, you need some witnesses and some testimonies. And then I think, like you said, Father, you need some random factoid articles, the history of Halloween, or some anecdote about Pope whoever, or even an anecdote about the situation with Galileo, or those things that give us a bad name that are kind of misunderstood. Those kind of things combined with some nice, good graphic design, maybe a chapter from the Baltimore Catechism, and just something that's well put together, that's well thought out, and that then gives a very clear sense of, go to our website.
Yeah.
Go to your local Catholic church, and that has that information in there. It's not just go find a priest.
Right.
Call this number, email this person. If you want more, here's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
There needs to be a sense of a call to action associated all through that book over and over again. If you're interested more about this, here's the person to call.
Yep, and indeed that is the case. At the bottom of this magazine here, or really within the inside cover, you can find more online, and then there's a list of the things that you'll find online. Find out more answers to Bible questions at the website, and it really, one of the things that's striking me about it is the same thing that we say about radio and audio podcasts. It's something that you can do completely anonymously. Nobody has to know that you're listening to Catholic radio. If you have questions, you simply listen and let them answer. And then if you want to get involved, you can call the number or that sort of thing. It's almost the same thing with a publication. It may have been given to me by a Catholic, but the Catholic, they've walked away. I didn't have any questions at the time. But making that connection that now this is in my hands and I'm getting good, solid teaching, there's a lot to be said for that, and that might propel me onto the internet. It might propel me to a certain website, or even to the Bible, or it might actually propel me to go to that parish church that's listed on the back. And there's just something that's beautiful about that. And I know, Jeff, would you read something like this if it showed up at your door?
I think so, because I'm not getting that. They're not in my face, and I don't have to feel defensive or to try to search for an argument. It's something that I would like. Well, I'd be more apt to read it,
Yeah.
or look at it, and then make a decision based upon that. But I love it from the standpoint that if Catholics or the Catholic Church had something similar to this, and then each church or parish could buy a quantity of them and put their own stamp with the address or label on it.
Yeah, and of course that brings up the idea of design. And shall I unleash, witness the quickness as I kick this? It's got to be up to date. It's got to pay attention to all the other design trends that are out there, because as we say so many times, it's got to look like something that I want to read. This document, this magazine, looks like something that I could find in a drugstore in the magazine aisle. It really does. Then, of course, there's always the Catholics default to cheese principle. Catholics, oftentimes, we find ourselves in the cheese category. We're using Microsoft Word art and Comic Sans to try and make a point, but it ends up just looking bad. So no cheese, right, Father?
Yeah, no cheese. No.
That's right. It's also got to be relatively short, as we say. It's got to be reasonably short, simple. It's got to be visually appealing. And as we say, it's got to point beyond itself. And I think good print publications are doing that now. I mean, how many magazines do you subscribe to where if you subscribe to the magazine that you also would then have the ability to subscribe to the online version as well?
Right.
And then, of course, we also talk about, Father, the narrative. You're really big on narrative.
Yeah, it's a huge thing for me. And frankly, more and more I'm seeing it as we do design here at the Minor Basilica, that, there needs to be a sense of what is the story I'm telling? How does the website relate to the bulletin, and how do both of those things relate to what we're doing in social media? Because otherwise it's just a random smattering. But if you're telling some kind of story with your design, and you're telling some kind of story with your content, then you start to have a reason to read all the way through to the end of this book. And so I think the narrative for each issue, and I'm thinking it has to be about a quarterly kind of thing. It'd be absurd to try to do this monthly. A quarterly book, you could have a narrative that is determined by the script that you're going to give to these door-to-door evangelists. Because I think the book, the print publication, in addition to the PDF and the website, all need to work together towards some script where you can say, here is what you say. Take the book, go, and then almost like you'd have for a call center, here is a handful of stuff, not the kind of stuff of I'm going to convince you that some random piece of theology, but go, introduce yourself. Here's some icebreakers. Ask if you can share your own story. Give them the book. If they want more information, give them the information. Propose, don't impose. And I think that narrative for each of those things could adjust a little bit as you have different articles, different factoids, and it kind of builds itself into a narrative. It gives you reason to go back again.
Right, exactly.
I saw you 6 months ago, and we had a nice conversation. I just wanted to drop this off, another copy for you, and just let you know that I appreciate your time last time. And if there's anything more you think of, if you have the same book over and over again, then there's no reason for you to go back. But if you've got a narrative, if you've got a reason, then you can go back again.
And if you think of the breadth of Catholic theology, you've really got publications for every quarter from now until the second coming.
Well, you've got Advent, Lent, Pentecost.
Yeah.
Already built in. And so, there's your three of your narratives. And then the other one is your ordinary time, is how do you become a saint in the ordinary living of the day.
Yeah, one of the things, this one, the little insert called Awake, in addition to the truth about Halloween, there's also a really pretty long article here on premarital sex. I mean, just kind of jabbed right in there about the truth about Halloween. So they're kind of bearing morality into the idea of, we're going to teach you about something that you may not think about when it comes to morality. And so a really kind of a neat idea, too, that they would use some, the cover is pointing you towards a story inside, but then there are also some other things that you go, oh, I was wondering about that, So again, I have to say it to the Jehovah's Witnesses, well done on this publication. While I wouldn't give carte blanche to the theology contained within it, I would say that it represents a real important step into being able to to get across something to your congregants. And as Catholics, I think we certainly need to be doing that. So the practicals, you say, would be a quarterly publication.
I think you'd need to have an accompanying website and social media things that we're kind of continuing to give reason for people to continue to be a part of interacting. And of course, those things would need to drive people to their local parish.
Yeah.
You'd want a script that would accompany the document, that would be something that looked nice, that would be able to, people would be able to quickly memorize some basic apologetics.
Yes.
And that would be very helpful if in my area I've got lots of Baptists and lots of Pentecostals, whereas in your area, Father, it's a whole different crowd. So how do you respond to that? Maybe something on the website would be helpful there. And I think it needs to be inexpensive enough to be able to be given away freely, because even a small town and a small parish would need to buy 1,000 of these a quarter. And if that's not something that can be done for $1 a copy,
right?
Then you really can't hope to be able to use these in any kind of broad.
That's right.
Broad context.
And one of the things that I see is this is then useful because it contains the truth. This is then useful in my own congregation, and so I'm going to be learning from it as well as giving it. And so I think at least 1,000 per quarter, so that I can get it out to the homes and then have it for the parishioners. And one of the cool things too is that these little publications can be maybe the doorway into the RCIA, into an inquiry period. And to me, that would be something that would accompany this as well.
There you go.
Is a monthly inquiry period, where the doors are open. You've read the article, you've read maybe a little insert that would go into it. You've read the publication. Well, here's an inquiry session that's going on in your parish. So this is really good stuff. And so David, I'm looking at you. Brian, I'm looking at you. Where is this? You know who you are. You know you've got print capabilities. You know you love letterpress machines. This is something right up your alley, and I look forward to seeing what we can do. Alrighty, welcome back. You're listening to the Catholic Underground. We're online at CatholicUnderground.com. And our picks of the week are going to be coming up a little bit later. But first, Father Ryan, Jeff Blackwell, myself, we're speaking about an article happening within the National Catholic Register. Pat Archibald is mad, as you know, and he's not going to take it anymore. He's upset by what he's calling Woody Allen Catholicism, right, Father? I have no idea what he could be talking about. Well, I don't know what he could be talking about.
Obviously, you know who Woody Allen is. Yeah. For those who don't, Woody Allen is one of these classic American film producers. He's kind of a shorter fella. He's a Jewish guy from New York. He has a thick accent, and he pioneered the awkward silence and the timid, wimpy anti-hero. And there are some great movies, Annie Hall and others that he's famous for. And he often starred in his own film as an awkward kind of protagonist who represented everyman, kind of the anxious, nervous, neurotic everyman.
He basically played himself in every one of his movies.
He did. He was awesome. And Pat Archibald's concern is that Catholicism has embraced this kind of anti-hero status. Catholics tend to speak about their faith with this timidity, this real kind of awkward, like I'm almost apologizing when I share anything about my faith, and certainly I'm apologizing if I disagree with any part of the present culture or with anybody who I'm discussing.
Yeah, this is what usually gets termed as "I'm Catholic, but."
Yeah, and that's exactly
kind of
what
thing.
happened.
Yeah.
Some would say, "Oh yeah, and I believe in the Bible, and my pastor said this on Sunday, and you've got to pray in tongues to be saved by the Holy Spirit." And you go, "Well, I'm Catholic, but you can believe whatever you want, but we kind of don't believe that, and as opposed to, let me share with you what I really believe, that the sacraments are where you get saved, and the sacraments are the source of your salvation."
So Catholics have become anti-heroes.
Right, that's his argument, and I think he's got a very compelling, argument for that. And he says, it's time for us to, at least in this moment in history, abandon that kind of Woody Allen Catholicism in favor of something more along the lines of a John Wayne Catholicism.
So we're going to get the wagons in a circle?
Just a minute there, Pilgrim.
That kind of man's man, the bold, courageous, and strong. He says what he needs to say. He's fearless, and he's not necessarily going to punch somebody in the head. He's just going to say, this is where I stand, and you need to know that, and I need to say it to you.
Yeah.
And now if you have a problem with it,
right.
That's your issue, not mine.
Yeah, that would be different than Chuck Norris Catholicism. Right.
Love that.
That's right. Then they'll be crushing the world in half when he tries to do a push-up. That's a whole different
That's
thing.
right. His forearms are named Justice and Truth. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of Catholicism, that's probably not going to be useful at this particular moment in history.
Yeah, but a courageous John Wayne type Catholicism, I get it. The idea that you're sincere and at the same time you're unapologetic. I know I think about whenever I was a clinical pastoral a CPE, that's what we call it, clinical pastoral education. When I was a chaplain, one of the things that kind of confounded and intrigued was the fact that as a seminarian, I pretty much knew what the church taught, and I didn't really care who you were. I was going to share the reason for my joy. And it really went a long way, which was surprising because everything, Father Ryan, that you and I hear, and maybe you had an experience that was a little different, is that whenever we try to practice Catholicism in a courageous and an upfront way, that it actually you lose ground. But that wasn't the case for me. I know perhaps your experience was a little different.
Well, I mean, there were people who were upset that I wasn't, respecting their tradition.
Yeah.
Because I had the same experience. I was just saying, this is what I believe. I wasn't insulting them or throwing rocks at them. I was just saying, well, you believe this and I believe this, and that's where we stand. I'm not going to come over to your side. You're welcome to come over to mine, but that's just where we are.
Yeah.
And what I found is among people who are professionally religious,
yes,
that was something that was very offensive to them. They were, we should all respect one another's opinions and blah blah blah. But I found among real people that they preferred somebody who actually believed what they believed.
Yeah.
And I found that in the parish as well. When you have a discussion with other priests and you stand by something that they may not agree with, well, everyone's offended that we're not all, being compassionate and simple enough. But when you talk to people, even if they don't agree with you, there's a sense of appreciation of, Father, I appreciate you believe that. I don't agree, but I'm glad you're standing up for what you believe in. And almost ubiquitously, I've had a good experience with people who are ordinary human beings who want to know that people believe things and that they stand by their beliefs.
That's right. Jeff, have you had any experience with that? You're as we call you a new Catholic, but of course you came into the church in 1990.
Right.
And so you've definitely had that experience of having to probably explain your faith in some way, and to do so in a way that's not, I don't know, but I'm Catholic. The reason I became Catholic is because this is what I believe.
Yeah, and it's so hard to me at times to get that point across to people because what had happened was I had just gotten so tired of playing church, if you will, and I wanted to get back to the basics. What happened after Jesus ascended into heaven? Where did the church begin? And that's kind of what had gotten me fired up about my faith, or at least the getting into RCIA and searching for what I was looking for as the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a long-term way of getting there, but I had quit going to church for like 5 years. I just didn't even go to church at all. And I had children that said this is important. They need some sort of foundation. And so was it a John Wayne Catholic that captivated you? No, I wouldn't say. It was more of like coming to the realization that there was something more, something that I needed to search for. And I tried all these other things. So I was talking to a friend of mine, and this happened to ask him, what's the deal about the Catholic Church? And there were so many things that I had been misinformed about.
Yeah. And that's what I wonder about this friend. Did this friend, was he able to say, yes, this is what I believe, or and this is what we believe as Catholics, and here's this and here's that. Not so much the content, but the delivery.
In John Wayne style, it was almost like, well, Pilgrim, I don't know, but we'll find out.
We'll find out together.
By golly.
Yeah.
And he did. And he called, his church and said, look, I got this friend of mine that's looking for some answers, and I really I can't tell him what to do. And that's when they suggested RCIA.
Mm-hmm.
And he was with me for that 6-month period every week, as well as my wife. And she was a cradle Catholic, but we went through it together, and it was really very enriching.
So she had kind of a reversion experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great. So,
And so, Father Ryan, we're talking here not so much about the content itself, but the way the content is delivered, right?
Yeah, we're looking for people who are just being real and saying this is what I believe, this is what the church believes, and you're welcome to disagree. That's entirely your prerogative, and it's not my job to convince you, but it is my job to witness and to say this is what I believe. Because there is the possibility of if you've ever had like a Jehovah's Witness knock on the door and you say, well, no, thank you, I'm not really interested, and you have someone who just kind of pushes their way in, and they're rude and they're obnoxious.
Yeah.
And, well, you have to agree. You have to. No, I'm not going to accept that you don't agree. That's not helpful for anybody. Nor is it helpful to have somebody who wags the finger and says, Jeff Blackwell, you heathen. You just a heathen, and you're going to burn in the fires of hell if you don't listen to me.
Right.
Nobody is edified by that, but somebody who witnesses what God has done, who is honest and sincere and says the church believes the sacraments matter. And if you ever get to the point where you're able to receive the Holy Eucharist or go to that confessional, you'll believe that too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to pray that you'll one day have that experience. That's John Wayne Catholicism. And I think that has enormous power to change hearts.
Yeah.
That's right. It's the gospel today. The prodigal son.
That's very true. Yeah.
We as Catholics don't hit people over the head with God's mercy, but we simply present it. Whatever's been going on in your life, wherever you find yourself, whether you're in the city or you're in the farm next to the pig trough, God is searching for you. He's looking for you in the beautiful fullness of truth that is our faith. And so, what is called for, Father? John Wayne Catholicism. I think I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
From the Catholic Underground.
All right. Well, I can't say I really know where we're going with this next story, but speaking of John Wayne and of manliness, the phenomenon that is Duck Dynasty, I don't know that I've ever watched an episode of it, but I'm told I should.
Yeah.
Duck Dynasty. It has led to a new interest in beards, the manliest of all the facial hairs. Father Ryan, you dabble in bearding.
Yes, I've bearded from time to time, and mine does not come in very well anymore. For a very brief while there, I wore a beard, and it looked good, but I just don't like wearing it anymore.
Yeah, I never have. For me, in fact, I just bought a new series of razors to try out. Because I just don't like it. But apparently it's a thing, and it even goes all the way back to 195, the year 195, right?
Yeah, there's a remarkable history. We came across this great article from Christianity Today about all these kind of moments in history where at one point beards were required of the clergy, and then at other moments where the clergy were required to be beardless. And you kind of go back and forth. And now with Duck Dynasty, you have these two guys from Monroe, Louisiana, or West Monroe, who have these gigantic beards, and they're very, very serious Christians, not Catholics, but Christians. And they're actually giving a sermon at Saddleback Church here before too much longer. Huh. And there's all this kind of discussion about, what is the history of bearding? And so it seemed like a completely random thing to do, but it seems like it would be hysterical for the CU to kind of go through and just, if I walked you through a little bit of the history of beards in the church.
And so now we go to Father Ryan and beards throughout Catholic history.
Well, the history of beards, for those who need to know, begins in the Catholic Church around 195, as you said, with St. Clement of Alexandria. And he says the beard is the mark of a man, and it is therefore unholy to desecrate the symbol of manhood.
Oh. And
it becomes very, very synonymous with being a man and a man of God, that you have a large, bushy beard. And at that time, however, a lot of the clergy were beardless, or they had a closely trimmed beard. And so the idea became, grow that sucker out. Wow. And then you get to about 400 AD, and you've got Euthemius, who says that only men with beards can come to his monastery. these boys with their female faces can just stay home. That if you don't have a beard, you cannot come into my cave, kind of thing. And if you jump off about 400 years after that to about 816, the Council of Aachen requires that monks shave every 15 days. And so you're kind of going now the other end of things. And other monastic communities start to adopt the idea, and they're only shaving, a couple times a year, but the idea is you shouldn't have a big bushy beard if you're going to be a monk or someone who's in an active community. Now, hermits continue to have the big bushy beards, but now there starts to become a distinction between the ascetic who has the big beard and then the person who's actually living kind of connected to the world who now has a trimmed beard.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like Duck Dynasty is going for from the pictures that I've seen. I get the sense of an ascetic beard.
Yeah, this kind of long, bushy, kind of soup catcher kind of a beard.
Please leave me alone, beard.
Yeah, well, so if you move forward to almost just shy of 900 AD, 867, you start having this tension between the East and the West. Of course, this starts happening when the Eastern Roman Empire starts to become a thing, and so it becomes now where Pope Nicholas actually writes to French bishops that the Eastern church leaders were critical that among us the clerics do not refuse to shave their beards, and so now the East and the West are getting into fights over beards. And then as you move a little further along, the same kind of French Benedictines,
Fights
a guy
over
named
beards.
what's that?
Sorry, fights over beards.
Fights over beards. So you got Bertramnus, this Benedictine monk, who later inspires several figures in the Protestant Reformation, actually, and he actually goes to bat for beards, against beards, and he says no, it's completely right to shave, and the Easterns are going no, it's not, and it's all this back and forth to the point where they're actually quoting Ezekiel. And talking about whether or not you ought to or not wear a beard.
Because Ezekiel shaved his beard when God told him to.
That's right. And so now as you get closer to the year 1000, beards go out of fashion. In fact, clergy should now be shaved cleanly. And by the time you get into the early 1000s, full beards kind of sneak back into style, but they fall out again. And it becomes, a sense of nostalgic. But one abbot in 1043 says, the empire in Germany was besieged by the shameful custom of the vulgar French, and it's considered immodest to shave a beard. And so it says, in the cutting of beards and the shortening and deforming of clothing, execrable to modest eyes and many other novelties. And so you have all these kind of things where suddenly, beards are sort of back, but clergy are told you should shave your beard. And then now by 1031, the councils are involved. Now we've got ecumenical councils. And so the Council of Bourges unequivocally mandates a shaved beard for all who minister within the Holy Church.
1031.
So now we're at the point of dogmas about whether or not you can or cannot shave your beard. And as you move further along, you get to the split between Eastern and Western Catholicism, and it becomes, after 1054, after the double excommunications, the notion is that those in the East should grow beards to show that they're not Westerners, and the Western clerics should shave their beards to show that they're not Easterners. And so you just keep going forward, and you keep going forward, and you keep going forward with this, and of course by 1080 you've got Pope Gregory saying that every cleric must shave his beard. By 1096 you got the Archbishop of Rouen threatening to excommunicate clerics with beards, and in fact threatening to excommunicate anybody with a beard.
You've got a beard, you're out.
Wow.
And then you go now, you move about 500 years forward, and then you have St. Thomas More in England, as he's getting ready to be beheaded. And remember, this is a cleric. He says, hang on a minute, and he puts his neck on the chopping block but moves his beard out of the way, saying famously, my beard has not been guilty of treason. It would be injustice to punish it.
Wow.
Classy.
And
that is a man.
And so beards are kind of coming back now by the 16th century.
I love the fact that Henry VIII taxed people with beards.
Yes, there's a tax now that's levied on beards by the 16th century. And you have this kind of odd thing. And now you move to our modern era in 1942, C.S. Lewis says, we have for many centuries triumphed over nature to the extent of making certain secondary characteristics of the male, such as the beard, disagreeable to nearly all females. And there is more in that than you might suppose. A typical kind of C.S. Lewis thing. And then you move later on and you get to the 70s, the anti-war era, and you have certain Christian colleges barring beards because of their association with protest movements. And then in 2013, you have Duck Dynasty. And what can you say?
We've come
about
full
Duck Dynasty?
circle.
Two
Now
or three
we're back
times.
to bearding.
Man, and I mean, among the hipster movement, bearding is a really big deal, especially well-manicured beards.
That's right. Well, and the fancy mustaches of people like braiding their mustache into their beard and things like that.
Yeah, I would imagine that sealing wax futures are going through the roof at this point. Because, wow, yeah. So I don't know, Jeff?
Well, I've never been able to grow a beard. The few times I've tried, it comes in splotchy. It just, yeah. But the guy, when you're talking about the mustache and beards, check out, just Google George Orr, O-H-R. He was a potter, if you will, from Gulfport area back at the turn of the century, 1900. He had some outlandish. He'd let this mustache grow so long he'd tie it behind his back. About the back of his head, rather. So,
which is useful for carrying a pack.
But I've never had any luck with beards. I'm jealous.
I'm not.
No, beards are incredibly uncomfortable to wear. I mean, having worn goatees, mustaches, and beards, you have to constantly. I mean, every time you're in the shower, I have to use shampoo and conditioner on the beard, and lots of conditioner because your face dries out so quickly.
Oh, wow!
And there's lots of itching, and of course, guys throughout their lives will have certain blemishes and certain things that grow in the face or have ingrown hairs.
Yeah.
And those things, because they get hidden under the beard, you can't just look at your face and realize there's something there.
My. Yeah.
And so you'll just kind of one day have this huge pain, and you kind of
what is that? Am I dying?
And you dig through and you go, oh, there's an ingrown hair there that's now 1/4 of an inch long that I had no idea was there. And
oh my! Yeah.
It takes a lot of energy to keep up with a beard, and then of course you have to shave the thing, or you have to trim it.
Yeah.
And if you make even the slightest mistake, and you accidentally with that razor go just a little bit too far, then you set the whole beard off center. And it's a fairly difficult thing to grow a good-looking beard, and it does take a while to get into the habit of kind of not spilling food in it.
Oh my!
Well, talking about how it takes a well-trained habit. There could be, truthfully, an ascetic practice to growing a beard, to cultivating it. You could, in my head, I'm not going to grow one. Can't get past the itching. But it's almost like writing an icon, if you do it right.
Yeah, I agree.
I
agree.
I mean
it's...
Well, I like our former governor, Mike Foster. He would always grow a beard during duck hunting season.
Season, yeah.
And that was in the mid-'90s. I mean, he probably still does it today.
I know a couple of priests who do the same thing.
Okay.
And,
well,
it just happens to coincide with Lent sometimes.
Okay. But he's bald for the most part, but got this beard. I think it just looks cool, but distinguished.
Well, I tell you what, wherever you fall on the on that side of the coin, let us know. Backchat@CatholicUnderground.com. But first, it's the time of the podcast you've been waiting for. The
CU Pick of the Week.
For our first CU Pick of the Week, Jeff, you've been quiet this episode. What you got?
Yeah, you guys are over my head sometimes.
Well, actually, we're under your face now.
Listen, but I love you. Yeah. Leatherman is well known for a tool that typically you attach to your belt, and campers and hikers, rock climbers, mountain climbers use their tools. But one that I love is the one I bought a few years ago was called the Squirt. Well, now they call it the Leatherman Micro Multi-Tool.
It sounds more manly.
but it's just small, and it'll fit on your keychain. And there's like 10 tools in this little, and it's well built. It's high quality. They list for $40, but I've found them online for $20 to $30. Come with a 25-year warranty. I use it a lot in my electronics type work and sound work, and they make a version with scissors and one with small pliers. So I really like it. It's a handy dandy tool. I even gave one to my daughter. My wife has one on her keychain.
Oh yeah.
It's got, if you wanted to do, it's even got a nail file on there if you want to, tackle the toes or your fingernails.
Yeah. You don't, and your beard isn't wiry enough to just run your fingernails through that.
It does have a good sharp knife on it in case you need to trim up there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've really enjoyed it, and I just wanted to pass it on because they've come out with a newer version of it. And in the show notes, which you can find at CatholicUnderground.com, we'll have a link to where you can find them. And I believe that's about all I wanted to say.
And as you said, these are TSA approved, so you can travel. But
and even the Leatherman site says they're TSA approved. But if the TSA person is having a bad day, they could confiscate it.
That's right. Then they get a Leatherman tool, and you get the runner.
And I've actually found them on eBay where a box of 10 confiscated by TSA, for one low price. But
well, there you go. Father Ryan, your pick.
So when you're doing very, very large computing projects, there's not a single computer that can actually keep up with the work. And trying to is extremely expensive, trying to build supercomputers. And so what has become very common is called distributed computing. And this is a project that's been around for a very long time. It's called Folding at Home at folding.stanford.edu. And there are a number of projects like this. There's one for SETI. There's one for a bunch of other things. But basically what you do is you install an app on your computer. It's free. It's obviously, it's easy. And what the app does is it goes and it talks to Stanford and says, look, I'm ready to do a project. And so Stanford will shoot you some raw data from a scientific study or something like that. And then your computer will kind of grind the numbers. And when it's done, it shoots it back to Stanford. And so instead of them having to build a supercomputer to run the numbers, to run the complex algorithms and computations, people just volunteer to do it. And so basically when your computer goes into idle mode, that you've been away for 15 minutes or whatever, it just starts running through this process. And when you get on your computer and do something, it stops the process and lets you do your work. But when you're not doing anything on your computer, you could be very well working through folding the proteins and things like that are needed to cure cancer or Parkinson's or Huntington's or Alzheimer's. And so I'm including in the show notes both the project Folding at Home, but also the long list of other projects if you want to work on DNA sequencing, or if you want to be of assistance in calculating the raw data of the Hubble telescope, or if you want to know if it's possible to calculate pi to 100 billion digits, or whatever it is you want to do, there's some kind of distributed computing project for you. But it's a really good and easy way to use the enormous amount of extra computing power that almost all of us just have sitting on our desks and that are not being used most of the day.
I think about the very famous SETI at Home folding that took place. I don't know if it still is, where you can help to look for extraterrestrial life and crunch the data that comes through those big giant telescopes.
Yeah, and that's in the long list of stuff I'm including the list of computer projects. I mean, there's everything under the sun, from stuff that is completely useless, like 3D houses that are just asking people to help them render their 3D animations, to literally people who are sequencing genomes, to people who are trying to do advanced cryptography or design drugs. I mean, there's anything you can want to do for fun or profit. Just tons and tons and tons of stuff out there. It's very, very interesting.
My goodness. Well, I can't say that I've been looking for oil with my computer, but my pick of the week comes from Dave Wessel's comics blog, and it's a really good story on Carl Barks. Now, I mentioned Don Rosa a couple of episodes ago and how he's my favorite Disney duck artist in the comic book form. Well, Carl Barks was the first guy. He invented Uncle Scrooge, and, of course, my favorite Disney character. And he writes about, Dave Wessels writes about the type of pens that Carl Barks used to make those comics. And, of course, it was an Easterbrook pen, and Esterbrook was a well-known pen company, perhaps still is. And there's a very long process about the Esterbrook pen, as well as Carl Barks's process of making the Uncle Scrooge comics. And so there's some really good pictures. Carl Barks would draw on Strathmore paper that was about the size of two newsprint pages.
Wow.
And to imagine that he would draw it that big and then it would be shrunk down to the size of a comic book is really, really neat. He always wondered how people could get so much detail in a small drawing, and so he would use his pen to make a detailed drawing, but very, very large, and then it would be condensed. And so the process was really cool, but also the nibs, the pins are really neat too. So my pick of the week is over at Dave Wessel's comics blog, and we'll put that in the show notes. The best way to get our show notes is by going to CatholicUnderground.com. And what you can do from there is click on the latest episode, or really any episode that you'd like, and you'll get the show notes for everything that we talked about on that episode, and sometimes a little bit more as well, especially if Father Ryan is feeling typey. Like he wants.
He's always feeling typey.
That's true. He's typey from too much electric. And so that's the best way to do that. And Jeff, of course, we thank our benefactors, don't we?
Indeed, we do. By the way, I was just thinking that Father Ryan is probably the John Wayne of research. So,
well, you're right, Pilgrim.
Go get him, Father Ryan. Portions of the Catholic Underground are brought to you by audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground. That's audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground.
And as always, for those of you who pray for us, for those of you who have contributed in any way to what you hear or what you see, we thank you for your patronage of the Catholic Underground, and of course, we always count on it as well. So know that you remain in our prayers, and of course, we hope you pray for our apostolate as well, because we can't do it without you. The reason that we exist is because of you. You called it forth. We presented it, and you're still lapping it up, and we thank you for listening and for watching as well. And so if you want the show notes, if you'd like any of the stuff that accompanies this episode or our podcast, or if you want to find out more about our apostolate, maybe you missed a show, if you want to find out ways to connect with us on Twitter or Facebook, you can head over to CatholicUnderground.com to do that. And that's the best way to get in touch with us. And of course, you can always send email at backchat@CatholicUnderground.com, or you can comment on Facebook on one of our posts, or send us a message that way, as some of you have done. And so, as of course we thank Father Ryan for joining us all the way from up in North Louisiana. His church is online at minorbasilica.org. He's at Fr Humphries on Twitter. And so, Father Ryan, we thank you for joining us. And do you have anything special planned this week?
I've got a lot going on this week, but I do want to let everybody know that I've started now recording the sermons. And so the minorbasilica.org has our Sunday bulletins. It also has the Sunday sermons. And so please feel free to listen and to comment on those as well.
Very cool. minorbasilica.org. Jeff Blackwell is the tech director for the CU. He is the ruling despot of the Blackwell Communications Group. He's at jeffblackwell.us on the interwebs, and he's on Twitter as well at jeffblackwellus. Thanks, Jeff. You see what I did there?
I love that. That's nice. Thank you, Father. It's good to be here.
Don't just Jeff Blackwell you, Jeff Blackwell us. Mary Kate Taylor is an evangelist. She is our video producer, and in her spare time, she provides crisis counseling to giant crustaceans from the Paleolithic era for only $3.50 an hour, and we thank Mary Kate for all of her work. And you know me, I'm Father Chris Decker. You can follow me on Twitter at Digital Catholic. You can join us on the interwebs at CatholicUnderground.tv for even more from the CU. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us on the digital continent. We're Catholic Underground. We're Faith Gone Digital. And I promise you, we'll see you next time.
From the Catholic Underground.
Well, it's the see you later. I don't know what to say about it. Well, I guess it's pretty good. I'm Father Chris Decker. We got Jeff Blackwell, who remains nameless. No, wait, he's right there. Hey, Jeff.
Yeah, here I am.
Got Father Ryan Humphries, who joins us yet again.
Yo.
What's up? And Mary Kay Taylor, who I must say has done just a wonderful job.
Yeah, if you yell real loud, Mary Kate may be able to hear you.
Yeah, in space, nobody can hear you scream. I'm sorry. That's just the way that it is.
They kind of can.
Well, did you see... Gosh, it might have been on the BBC. They actually have the first audio recording from space. I'll have to look it up and see if we can put it in the show notes.
Oh, that would be neat.
But I think it might have been. I don't know if it was from the Voyager spacecraft because I only caught the tail end of the news. But they actually had an audio recording from what space sounds like. So Joss Whedon could be wrong, Father.
Oh, he very well could be wrong. He's crazy.
There's no opera music in space. There's actual noise. Because that's the deal. Like in here we go again. In Star Trek,
yes,
things explode in space, and when they explode, you hear the noise.
Yes.
Well, Joss Whedon of Firefly fame and Serenity fame. Have you ever seen the Firefly?
I have not. No.
Jeff,
you must see Firefly.
Really? Okay.
What are we gonna do with just Jeff?
Wow.
Anyway, so Joss Whedon says, well, there's no sound in space. And so when things explode in space, like a ship or something like that, shouldn't be any sound. When it goes to warp or whatever they call it, shouldn't be. No, none of that. So he plays usually some form of opera or instrumental piece whenever they cut to a space shot.
That sort of reminds me of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, well, that's very true. 2001, I don't think you ever heard any sort of sound effect in space. I don't think so.
I don't either. I've
been wrong before. I haven't had a chance to consult my beard.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know how to respond to that. I've got no thoughts on that.
But I have no beard.
Yeah. But
yeah. So there's that. But anyway, I don't know. I just think it's neat that space has sound. Possibly. There was something. It might have just been background radiation, but there was sound.
Yeah.
They played a little
it
bit.
Seems as though I've heard recordings from the Very Large Array out in New Mexico, the VLA.
Oh, yeah.
That they had, but it just sounded like almost like white noise to me. It was just static, But
this
was coming from outer space. Woo! Actually, we were driving across the plains. I forgot the name of that. Father Ronnie, you know the name of the desert or the plains where that Very Large Array is located?
I don't.
Oh man, we came over through a mountain pass, and it kind of looked like a desert, and then way out in the distance we could see. Wait. Those satellite dishes out there. There's a bunch of them.
And
sure
Come on, Flash. Let's go investigate.
We got out there and they had a sign from. I didn't even realize we were going to be passing by them, but I love that kind of stuff. And they had this self-toured museum on the property there. It's kind of cool.
So apparently, the sounds emitted by stars light years away from Earth
Uh-huh.
in 2011 were captured by British astronomers using the Kepler Space Telescope. They say that the music created by the stars gives a much more accurate picture of their size and structure than was available previously.
Nothing like, feed me.
No, I think it's probably more like a David Bowie song. I mean, if I had to,
I like that.
Yeah.
Really hope it's not.
You prefer Sting, Father?
Ground control to my
as much as I enjoy David Bowie, I think he's a bit crazy. So
Do you celebrate his entire catalog, Father?
I don't celebrate Bowie's entire catalog.
That is really the one song that I
What, Ground Control to
I'm a
Major
complete
Tom?
poser. I like
Space
changes,
Oddity,
but that's really it.
Did you see? I thought of this, and nobody made the joke that supposedly whenever the latest cosmonauts were coming back to Earth in their vehicle, they lost their video guidance. They lost all their telemetry, and so they had to be talked down. They had to be told when to fire their rockets and everything by ground control.
Right.
And the whole time I'm going, oh, please, some of you've got to make that. You've got to make the ground control to Major Tom. Nobody.
Oh.
Nobody. So here it's just me. I'll do it.
No one has a soul, I guess.
I suppose not, or at least not a sense of humor anymore. Of course, I mean to realize, people's lives are in danger, obviously, the cosmonauts, as they're coming in. Apparently,
They knew what they were signing up for.
They did. Darn it. Now, their rockets are a little bit different. Whenever they land, the rocket fires as it's landing, so that that thrust obliterates the crash landing.
Sure. It kind of offsets that gravity thing.
Correct. Apparently, gravity is a bit of an issue. I mean, we have our artificial gravity generators here at the radio station.
Yes.
And the Jeff's big burning wheel of Jeff Star
Dave.
1.
Dave, don't give away our secrets.
Oh, that's true. We can't. Yeah. Well, I didn't tell him
You're
how
ruining it.
I didn't tell him how we generated the artificial gravity.
You're wasting it.
You're wasting it.
Right.
You're wasting all of your cable television.
And it's full of stars. That's another one of my favorite lines.
It's
full of stars.
Yeah. Now, I liked 2010.
I did too.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes you a bad person. I'm fairly sure.
No, I don't think that it does. Well, did you like 2001?
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe it's just because I have a thing for, I have the bromance crush on Roy Scheider. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I read 2001 before I saw the movie.
There you go. So
so the book 2010 to me it didn't have anything like the scope or the, this kind of gigantic wow factor.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2010, the movie, I just kind of like, well, I don't care, because the only reason I like 2001 was because of the scope of the whole thing.
Yeah, very, very big scope.
It was huge.
But 2010, I thought they took what 2001 had done, and they really had they found the groove for it. And so the universe that's established in 2001, and of course I haven't read the book, but I bet it's good. The universe established in 2001 was now established. It was there. And so we were able to move around and see within it. And I also liked the interplay between the Russians and the United Statesians aboard.
They've elected the Russian.
They've elected the Russian. They've used this huge, gigantic microphone.
Sorry, had to do it.
That's okay. It's all right. Jeff, that's from The Shoes of the Fisherman, which is one of our top 10 must-watch films.
Oh.
Have you ever seen The Shoes of the Fisherman?
I have not.
About the guy. I think we've talked about this before. A little deja vu. No, we need to write it down, Jeff. He's writing it down.
It's worth watching. The movie itself has some issues, and so did the book. It comes from an era of a very contentious era in Catholic faith.
Yeah.
But it's one of those moments of this was in the 50s when the Cold War was happening, and they had a conclave. And what if, oh my God, they elected the Russian? And of course, not 15 years after this book was written and became a phenomenon, they elected the Pole.
Mm-hmm. It was actually kind of prophetic, this movie.
Yeah.
Huh.
And it even, was it made after Paul VI? It had to have been. Or maybe during.
I don't remember that movie. Let me look it up real quick.
Yeah, I can't remember. But even just some of the stuff that happens at the end of the movie almost harkens to Paul VI.
1968.
Okay,
so
this
it was during the time of Paul VI.
So that would explain some of the things that the Pope did in the movie. There's some very Paul VI kind of things.
All right.
But yeah, a good film. And if you really want to see the inner workings of how a Pope is elected, they've got one of the best explanations in it, and it's all shown. It's beautiful. It's very well done.
Now, was this a theatrical release? Or
it was a theatrical release, and it was 1968. And remember, back in 1968, they give you an intermission in the middle of the film.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
Yeah, so it's one of those where you have the overture, the entr'acte,
yes,
and the overture, and then the intermission. It's all there. And
yeah,
it's really
it's great.
Beautiful music.
And you have Anthony Quinn and Laurence Olivier playing the part, and it's one of these remarkable moments, because at the end of The Shoes of the Fisherman, they're positing for the first time ever, homosexuality was becoming a thing at that time, and they're positing in the book, and I don't want to give anything away, but it's important. The Pope ends up being gay, but he doesn't act on it.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And so there's this beautiful sense of, in addition to all the craziness and chaos, is it the Pope or is it the other guy?
I can't remember if it was the Pope or the other guy. It's
I
been a
think
while
it's
since
the
I read
Pope.
the book.
But
the idea that he is chaste, he's celibate, he's committed to his vocation.
Right. It's a remarkable story that is deep, and it's not like I gave all that much away by saying that, but it's a remarkable story, and it's set in the futuristic fictional world of the late 1980s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I still want my hoverboard. Just saying. I keep the DeLorean. I just want the hoverboard. And Father Ryan, you know what it would be like if I actually had one. It wouldn't be pretty.
No,
I can't handle things with wheels.
Yeah, we'd both be dead quickly, but it'd be worth it.
Totally that gravity thing again, huh?
Unless we had power.
Oh, my.
There it is.
Hey, something I wanted to say real quick, about, and tell me if I was off base here.
Probably.
Because, I don't think I had actually become Catholic yet. But we used to have the Jehovah's Witnesses that would come through our neighborhood on a fairly regular basis every, 3 times a year. And I'd finally gotten to the point where when they would show up, they wanted to give me the Watchtower and the Awake. And I would say, all right, great. Yeah, I'll take it. But listen, we're going to have to agree to disagree. But, I have my beliefs. You have yours. But I want to commend you for having the courage to, do what you're doing here. So, keep up the good work and send them on their way. I said, my neighbors may be interested, but
go bother them.
But I don't know. Is that out of line? Because in one respect, you were commending them for such a good job, Father Chris.
Yeah, with the publication.
With the publication, but not necessarily content. But
yeah. Well, I think that's not a bad thing. In fact, a couple of my friends have a sticker on their door with a picture of the Lamb standing as slain. And then underneath it says, "We are a Roman Catholic family, and proudly so. We thank you for visiting our home." But I forget exactly how it's worded, but it's a very succinct, but shall we say, pastoral response.
Yeah, because I'll be honest with you, I made up my own one sign with the "Forgive me for," and I'll tell you why. I said, "No Jehovah's Witnesses," and it was on the window. I said, "Don't knock, no salesman, no Jehovah's Witnesses." And then I found out my neighbor across the street was Jehovah's Witness, so I had to go apologize to her. But but she was cool with it. She understood,
Yeah, and it's one of those things. Again, we as Catholics, and Father, you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong. We do raise up the little nuggets and kernels of truth in other faith traditions. For example, the nugget of truth that is beauty and design. Mm-hmm. That's good. Some of the theological things that are expounded in these publications, absolutely wrong.
Right.
Some of it's good. I mean, some of the morality, good.
Yeah.
And so we are called to hold up what is good, and even in a sense to amplify it. I mean, I don't think that we came across as providing an apologetic mouthpiece for the Jehovah's Witnesses, but at the same time, to be able to say, guys, you're doing that well.
Yeah.
I think that's important. That's actually part of ecumenical dialogue, right?
No, it absolutely is. And because I was rereading Nostra Aetate yesterday, actually, we ought to, as a means of seeking to assist in the conversion of others, point out parts of their own truth, like St. Paul did at the Areopagus. Yeah. At the same time, though, we should be very, very cautious of commending the nugget of truth that is within an error to someone else who is not properly trained.
Right.
So while, Father, you and I are professionally trained, theologians and philosophers, it's one thing to say, yeah, we should pick up the Watchtower, read through it, and highlight the 8 or 10 things that are really quite good, as we did in the show today. It's entirely another to say, go look at it and figure it out for yourself.
Yeah. Which you'll notice we did not say.
Correct.
Which we did not say.
Right. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's perfectly good to say, here's a little bit of truth in Buddhism. Here's a little bit of truth in Hinduism. Here's a little bit of truth in basically anything.
Right.
But we always need to be careful as Christians to simply hand that to somebody who is not informed and not trained and say, now you look for it. Because remember, Christianity is easy to practice, but difficult to understand. And that's something that's a distinction that's rarely made. Jesus did not intend to make the faith easy to understand. In the parables, he made it easy to practice. Mm-hmm. He did not make it easy to understand.
That's right.
Yeah, it's been one of those little subtle things that I've realized recently and been preaching about, because somebody, a Baptist, was arguing with me about infant baptism. And I said, where at what point does it seem like Jesus made the faith easy to understand? I don't get that. He consciously pulls the apostles aside and said, I gave them this information, but I did not want them to understand. I want you to understand.
Yeah. I gave it to them in parables.
Yeah.
I'm telling you about it. And then when you go to them, use parables and then help them to understand.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, and perhaps the mind might say, well, isn't that Gnostic? Well, it's not, actually. It's providing a didactic means of coming to the truth. Wouldn't you say, Father?
Well, it's that, but it's also just the realization that not everybody needs to have a deeply overwhelming and profound intellectual depth. Yeah. The Lord wants to be able to speak to everybody.
Yeah, and we know those people, right? Those who and Jeff, you probably know them well. They could not give a theological dissertation to save their lives, but you ask them, do you love Jesus? And they can say, yes, I love him deeply, and I know him. And that
there's
goes
so
beyond
many
emotion.
saints like that.
Yeah, exactly. Saint Jean Vianney is a good one, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many times did he flunk out of the seminary? You know.
Well, I'm thinking too of Elizabeth Ann Seton.
That's
or
correct.
Or Mother Teresa of Calcutta.
That's right. That's right. Who they didn't have degrees behind their name, but they were actually able to do great things because of
masters of the spiritual life.
Right, because of their simplicity.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the same thing too with Teresa of Avila to a deep extent. I mean, one is considered a doctor of the church, but certainly never wisely educated in the faith. Neither was Teresa of Lisieux.
That's right. If you look at her writings, there are very few footnotes to other sources.
Yeah.
It's simply, I mean, a part of it, I guess we would probably say, is infused knowledge, given by the Holy Spirit, but also the ability to communicate it in a simple manner.
Right. And, I mean, she practiced the faith as a doctor of the faith. But, I mean, if you would have asked her to pull her aside and say, can you explain to me the theological underpinnings of your little way with specific references to the fathers of the church, she would have went, oh, mon Dieu.
I go maybe make some dinner and
I peel potato.
That's right. Exactly. I'll say a decade while I peel a potato and pray that you don't ask me that again.
And before I even knew what apologetics was, I had gotten into it, kind of an argument with this guy. At one point, I got frustrated because I didn't know how to get my point across. But he was just going on and on about, and this is a Christian guy, and he believed in the virgin birth, and so he was like, well, Mary went on to have kids. It says so in the Bible, and I said, okay, I disagree with that, but let me just put it this way: does that make her any less of a virgin when she had Jesus?
Right.
And he's like, oh. And that was and look, that's the depth of my apologetics at that point. So
Jeff Blackwell practicing reasonability in the faith.
Listen,
we were talking about that earlier. That's what I love about the faith. It's so reasonable because even as a kind of a level 1 Catholic, already you were being able to make logical distinctions, and that's good. And you may have not been complete in it. But the Lord can work with that.
Well,
right?
it did, and it chilled the argument. And the guy was just like, he came back actually a couple of days later and apologized. He said, "I understand you're pretty passionate about your faith, even though you don't, speak very well about.
Even though you're not very,
knowledgeable. So, but anyway,
and that's good though. But how many people do we know that may not be knowledgeable? But they're very passionate in a good way.
Yeah. And that's the one thing I would say that the more I get to know about our faith, even though it's been over 20 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just been in the last year or so that the depth of love for Mary has increased so much in my life. I just
and that's what we're saying, right, Father? Is that depth of love for Mary doesn't necessarily come from book learning.
Yeah.
But it comes from the Lord speaking to the heart as only He can. And sometimes it's with intellect and sometimes it isn't.
That's right. That's absolutely right. There are so many saints who are little, like who did nothing more than look at the windows in the church, prayed their rosary, but they knew the Holy Spirit. And, that's what you really need.
Yeah. And so, on that note, this has been the See You Later. You can always catch us right after the radio show. Radio shows at 8/7 Central, and the See You Later rolls around at 7:58:31. And we're happy to have you. I'm Father Chris Decker. We've also got Jeff Blackwell, who runs the board, Mary Kay Taylor, who is always pressing the buttons.
Yes.
And Father Ryan Humphries. Make sure that you join us every week if you can. We'll see you next time.
All right, Father Ryan, this is a good night from Big BR.
That's right. To all of our streamers out there, we thank you for sticking with us, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.